I had a chance to make some apple boxes, and it was a lot of fun. And it is a lot of work, and the best part about it is I was able to work with a friend of mine from college and kind of connect with one of his hobbies, which is woodworking, and also share mine, which is photography. So, hello, my name is Steve. I'm an amateur photographer. I enjoy using old photo equipment, old strobes, old packs, that kind of stuff that might have been used in a professional studio 20 years ago. And I use a lot of grip, and typically that's going to be stands or C stands, and grip arms and knuckles and all that kind of stuff. But I've never had apple boxes, and so he and I started talking, and to my surprise, he was game for this project. And what I ended up finding locally through Craigslist was a sheet of 4 by 8 Baltic birch, and that's exactly the material that you need. It's 9 ply. I bought it from a guy that I think was a cabinet maker, and he had extra stock he was trying to get rid of. So I bought the sheet for roughly maybe 50% of what I would pay if I could find it at retail. And so that's good. Baltic birch is, if you're not familiar with it, it's used in cabinetry on the inside. It can be used a lot of times in kitchens. If you sometimes they use those for the drawers that are in the kitchen. Um, but at any rate, it is strong and 9 ply. And these apple boxes that we've made are heavy, secure, and strong, and they're just quite nice. So I am not going to tell you how to make it. I'll give a link to the carpenter or the cabinet maker that we followed. His name is Nick Ferry, and the just you know great instructions, great video. I will say that he has one step in his video if you decide to go this path where he is using like it's called a biscuit joiner. We went that route, but that's totally optional. You don't need to necessarily think about that. And let's talk about the equipment because when you watch these videos, I don't really have strong woodworking skills. Um, I also don't have the equipment, but when you watch the video, or these videos, I've seen a few, I walk away, oh, maybe I can make one. And I think unless you've been around a table saw and unless you can work with like a handheld saw and Forstner bits and a router, and you have a couple of router bits and a couple of Forstner bits to make these, then I would suggest you find a neighbor or a friend. My experience is it was a great way to connect, learn a little bit more about their hobby, share my hobby, and would totally do it again if that opportunity came up. Um, the other part about this is if you're kind of a just getting started on woodworking type person, the materials add up. It's definitely less expensive than if you were to buy them new. But if you make a mistake, the old adage, measure twice, cut once, then, all of a sudden you're kind of getting in the ballpark of, oh my gosh, they're about the same price. So we didn't have any mistakes that were material. We had very little scrap that was left over, and that's because my friend, spent summers in high school and in college working for his grandparents. They had a millworking shop, so he, he got professional training during that part of his life. And he still has really nice equipment now, and he's kind of getting to the point where he's using it more and more. So the equipment matters. You need a lot of clamps. You need a lot of glue. You need a little bit of time. You need to be able to figure out how to cut up a giant piece of plywood so you don't waste a lot of it. There's just a whole bunch that goes into it. Um, so, how or why or what are these? If you're not familiar with an Apple box, they're a staple on film sets. They've been around probably at least for 100 years. Um, and people will use them to raise things, and that could be, in this configuration, it could be a seat. So if you're a photographer, you could put someone on there to do a portrait. Um, or this is a quarter apple box that you could have someone stand on it. So if you have two people in a picture and one is slightly shorter than the other and you want to have them eye to eye, then this is a way to do that. The way these things work is a full apple box that you're looking at here is, I think it is 8 inches, and then a half apple box would be 4, a quarter is going to be 2, and then the smallest one, which is an eighth, or it's called a pancake, is going to be 1. So you can you can stack them on top of each other in almost inch increments, and go up to, over 20 inches tall or something like that. I don't know the exact number. And a lot of famous actors have used these. So one that comes to mind, I think it would be Robert Redford. Another one might be Dustin Hoffman, leading men back in the day. They if you were to see it behind the scenes, you would see them standing on one of these so that they could be the same height as the rest of the people in the film. The way I want to use them is to help me to raise light stands, to help me to get my lights low. I can nail a baby plate to one of these and then use it for a background light. I'm also planning on using it to make a table out of it, or just use two of them with a sheet of plywood over the top to make a little bit bigger table for product photography. And I'm also planning to use it if I have my tripod up high. Yeah, I'm 5'8", so not super tall. It helps me to be able to look through the viewfinder of my camera if it's a little bit higher, or if I'm trying to do a top-down shot. So they're kind of a stepping stool. They're also a seating stool. They are something that your talent can stand on. They have a history to film, so if you're shooting people, you can talk about that. And I have talked to non-photographers about this. They've seen them. Some friends that have been over recently, and you'd be surprised. They're like, oh wow, this is kind of neat. So it's got all of that going for it. I stained these and then put some polyurethane over them. My reason for staining them is I didn't want something bright if I chose to use this let's say, have someone sit on it for a portrait. I didn't want the attention to be called to the bright box. You can see where there is glue. The stain didn't necessarily take. I wasn't going for a distressed or an aged look. I just wanted them to be dark. But if you are really interested in doing a great job, furniture grade staining, then yeah, you got to pay attention to where the glue is and that kind of stuff. And like I was saying earlier, you can actually stack these so you can do it in such a way that they can go up in like 1 inch increments. If I were to buy these, I would buy a pair. I would buy 2 fulls or 2 halves. I wouldn't get a full and a half. I would try to buy them in pairs because in that configuration, you could always use them to support another piece of plywood over it, or like a door, a hollow core door, and make a table out of it. And out of the 4x8 sheet that I picked up, I was lucky enough to get 2 fulls, 2 halves, this quarter that you're looking at, and then there's some scrap that's left over. It's kind of like almost a pancake, but not quite. So a lot of fun. Great opportunity to spend time with my friend. So thankful that I had him show me how to do this, and well, actually he did most of it, because there is a fair amount of skill that goes into making sure that you don't waste material. and there is skill with regards to how everything gets cut and how it gets sawed out and drilled out. There's a ton of safety involved. There's, clamps and nail guns and table saws and Forstner bits and drills, and if you're lucky, a drill press and files and sandpaper. I mean, it's a shop basically to build these. And so, not something for the beginner woodworker, but a great chance to connect for the person in your area that maybe is a hobbyist with shop, and share your skills with them, and they can help you if you want to go down that route.